I am going to call to order this Board of Education meeting. It is Monday, August 22nd, 2022. It is 6:02 p.m. and we are in the Nashua North Boardroom. Ms. Raymond, would you mind doing the roll call?
Sure. Hold on one second. Sorry.
I know I jumped the gun. Sorry.
That's okay. What time was it? 6:02?
6:02.
6:02. Okay. Ms. Darling?
Here.
Mr. Claffey?
Here.
Ms. Giglio? Here. Ms. Raymond is here. Ms. Lampier?
Here.
Ms. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Oden?
Here.
Welcome, Ms. Oden. Ms. Johnson?
Present.
And Ms. Bishop.
Here.
We also have Dr. Andrade, Dr. Sarfty, Ms. Duffy, Mr. Donovan is not here, and we have Mr. Posca, who's not on my list. Am I missing anybody? No. Oh, and we have Mr. Smith for later.
Okay. When you're done doing the prayer, Ms. Darling, will you lead us in the pledge?
Okay.
Yep.
We're going to do the prayer
Well, not
first.
yet. We're doing the prayer first. I
Great.
said Miss once.
Sorry.
Heather.
I just have to flip the page. It's on a different area. Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty of managing the educational institutions of our beloved city. In our common endeavors, may we find a spirit of unity and understanding which will enable us to face our multiple problems with an objective mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen.
I like justity, though.
Yeah, it's a new word I made up.
We'll adopt it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The presentation's later, right? Okay. So we don't have any of that. So I am looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Giglio.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Lampier.
Okay.
Okay. So all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Is that one nay? Two?
Two.
Ms.
Okay.
Brown and Ms. Johnson. Does anybody have any items to add to the consent agenda? Seeing none, we are on to our first public question comment period. Did anybody sign up for it?
Oh,
Nobody signed up for it?
nope, unless they did it in blank
Invisible
ink.
ink? I mean,
We only have two people here. I think
I can assume, nobody jumped up.
neither one of them are shy people,
Okay.
having known them, so I think they'd let us know.
Yes. Okay. So this brings us right into Dr. Andrade's comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's my pleasure to share some great news with you this evening. First of all, McCarthy Middle School. I'm proud to announce the McCarthy Middle School Mustangs will take the field in 2024. The result was conclusive, with about 80% of respondents on our survey favoring the Mustangs. The school colors will be red and black. The architects will incorporate the colors in the mascot into the design of the school. More importantly, the McCarthy Middle School is now more than steel and concrete, but has an identity that will hold with students and staff as we approach the school's opening. In the meantime, it was great joining so many of you earlier this month for the groundbreaking. It marks a great milestone in the project, but we have much more work to do moving forward. It will be a pivotal year with fairgrounds renovations complete, the massive expansion at Pennachuck Middle School concluding this spring, and the building of the McCarthy Middle School now very active and very visible. However, we also look to develop this year a redistricting plan to balance the enrollment among the three schools, much more ahead to be sure. In the meantime, other construction projects are progressing. Right now, we have approximately $160 million in upgrades underway in our schools. Some delays have caused the Franklin School students to open the year at the Boys and Girls Club, until presumably late November. Marsha Bagley, Director of the Special Education, alerted families and staff to the change in the school site because of several construction-related issues. We wish otherwise, but it was a solid decision based on the safety of our students and staff. We are grateful for the Boys and Girls Club to accommodate our preschoolers and Brentwood students. At the Boys and Girls Club, newly renovated facilities, our students will be able to take advantage of many amenities. Thank you for all involved to this transition. I also want to pay special attention to our Director of Plan and Operations, Sean Smith, who's here today. Yeoman's work, incredible. Thank you. Summer school professional development. Multiple professional development opportunities were available to our teachers this summer, with more than 65 sessions scheduled from June through August. Workshop topics included academic disciplines, including reading, math, science. In addition, multiple workshops were about multilingual learners and advisory, where teachers on self-care also were offered. At our Administrative Institute last week, all 70-plus administrators gathered to discuss the important topic of equitable instruction in Nashua schools. The three-day institute gave me a great opportunity to discuss our fundamentals, our shared vision, values, and traditions. It was great, just as important for me as a superintendent to learn with them, and I feel the institute served as a great launch into the school year. Many thanks to our staff, teachers, and administrators for taking this time this summer to devote to renewing and recharging for the year ahead. Our ELL program, I'd like to share the encouraging news from Mr. Chopra, our Director of ELL and Student Services. Results of the spring access tests were promising, with 124 K through 12 ELL students testing out of the program. Wow. The 124 students no longer considered ELL learners, but are, in fact, English language proficient learners. We will now continue to monitor them for the next 4 years to ensure their continued success. Fall athletics. The school year has already begun for more than 750 high school student athletes trying out for fall sports. It was great to see our students back on the field. 9 fall sports teams held tryouts. We are excited particularly about a first this fall. After piloting a team last year, North and South are fielding co-ed bass fishing teams. Wow. We had a max of 12 students per team. There was a waiting list.
Who would think?
Who knew? So
I think they actually might have won the state tournament last year, so there you go.
That's a first for me, to see bass fishing. So the South team is coached by Brendan Martin, a social studies teacher, and the North team is coached by Jeff Pelletier, a special education teacher at Elm Street. Mm-hmm. The teams will practice together at Mine Falls during the week and on the water on Saturday mornings. The team will compete on how many bass caught and who caught the biggest fish. And as you said, last year we won the New Hampshire Bass Fishing Championship in Keene with catching 8 bass and weighing in about 18 total pounds. Not too bad, so really good. In other news, Nashua goes back to school. I look forward to seeing our families and principals at the 18th annual Nashua Goes Back to School at the Nashua Public Library this Thursday evening. I encourage all families and students to attend. Free school supplies and free eye examinations if needed, and much more. Our food service staff will be there to help families register for the federal free and no-cost breakfast and lunch programs at our schools. This is a great event. My thanks to the many sponsors and all who make the night possible, including the Nashua Public Library, Nashua Parks and Recreation, our city leaders, the Greater Nashua Chamber of Commerce, and more than 100 North and South Fall student athletes who will be volunteering to make sure the evening runs smoothly. I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday night at 5 p.m. In our Human Resource Department, so we ran some data. Since the beginning of the year, since January of 2002, our HR department has processed 437 new applicants or positions to the Nashua School District. That includes summer school programs, coaches, after-school programs, 21st century. But also, we'll be welcoming 139 new teachers and paraeducators to the district starting tomorrow at our new teacher orientation. So again, a big shout out to our human resource department, not only recruiting and retaining our teachers, but processing that number, that sheer number is, again, truly impressive. So welcome to the 139 new teachers to our district starting tomorrow. And lastly, first day of school. School opens on Tuesday, August 30th. To all of our students, study well, make new friends, and enjoy each day. Thank you.
Wow. That's a lot of great news.
A lot of great news.
Like this big grin on my face. It is now time for board member response to the superintendent comments. I'll start over here with Ms. Darling.
No comment.
Mr. Claffey?
Nothing.
I have an aside. I believe when I moved over here from over there, I lost my 2 black hand braces somewhere on the floor or on the chair, and they were in my bag, and I don't see them anymore, unless I left them in the car. So if they're not there, I guess I left them in the car. Sorry, it's kind of a very
Well, when
humid
we're going
night.
like this, because we're excited, I'm sure you were well aware of what was missing.
Yes, I will. I want to thank the superintendent for all of the good news tonight, and also for keeping us informed and communicating with us on a regular basis. Thank you.
Yes. Ms. Raymond?
All right, welcome to all of the new staff. I'm so excited to have so many people joining us before school starts tomorrow for new employee orientation. That will be fun and informative, and I'm sure everyone will have a great time. I do have a question about the first day of school. So our calendar says the first day starts on Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. Is that all students, or is it only specific grades?
6 through 9 is different. So,
At the secondary level, that first day of school will just be for grade 6 students at the middle school level and for grade 9 students at the high school level. And then all the other students will return to school, the 7th and 8th graders and the 10th through 12th graders, where we start on Wednesday.
Okay, so 7, 8, 10, 11, 12 is Wednesday. What about K through 5?
it's on.
Oh,
It's on all the
Oh,
time.
there-
It's a hot mic.
no green light. I was thrown off for a second. So K and preschool both start on September 6th.
Okay.
Okay, and then the other students,
1st through 5th
yeah,
is Tuesday or Wednesday?
it's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yep.
Okay. So it's only then the 9th, it's only the 7th and 8th graders, and then 10, 11, 12 who get Tuesday off.
Correct.
Okay.
And we'll make sure that the website is updated immediately.
Thanks. There's just been a lot of chatter in my household about who has to go to school on Tuesday. And I can't imagine that I'm the only household that has people in different schools arguing about who has to go. So, thank you.
Well, they can still show up. There's a nurse's office they can hang out in all day. Ms. Lampier?
I just want to say how incredible all this is. I mean, the sports, the ELL, the teachers, it's such good news. What a great way to start off the school year. So thank you for all this wonderful updates.
Ms. Brown?
Thank you for being so thorough in your report. I really appreciate it. I had one question about the change in school lunches this year compared to last year. Can you give kind of an update so we can get everyone on track?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no federal funding, so we are in the midst of a campaign to encourage the families to complete the necessary paperwork for free and reduced lunch. So unfortunately, again, the funding is not there as in previous years to feed all students. So again, families need to complete the paperwork for free and reduced lunch.
Excellent. So if they can get online at the website,
Yeah.
fill out the paperwork for free and reduced lunch, and then if there is a student who doesn't qualify for that program, they should go online. They can also put money in their account that way?
Correct. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Oden.
No button. No button.
No
Thank
button.
you. No, I just want to thank Dr. Andrade for that very complete communication you gave us, and congratulations to the ELL department. That is absolutely excellent news. Couldn't be happy. 124 students testing out. It's amazing. And the 437 applicants, 139 new teachers, I think you said. Looking at, I had a HR packet this week, and I think I saw 20 alternative certificate teachers, but I was amazed at how many of them had majored in the field where they were going to be teaching. You did a great job, the HR department did a great job of matching up people with our needs. So congratulations. I just have one question. Do you know how many teaching spots we might have left to fill?
So our biggest area of need right now, and we're running the numbers, but right now, our biggest area where we need 18 more special education teachers, 2 math teachers at the high school level, 1 social studies teacher at the middle school level, about 60 paraeducators, paraprofessionals. Those are the major ones. There's a couple, like a grade 1 teacher here or there, but the math teachers are going to be hard to fill. Family consumer science teacher, and also, unfortunately, tonight we'll also be reposting our director of career and technical education.
Well, congratulations to the district and to the HR department, because these are tough times, and I think you've done an exceptional job of staffing our schools the way you have. And hopefully, if anybody's out there and is thinking about applying, please do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Andre, for the wonderful news. It's always great to have positive feedback versus negative. It's great that our ELL department is really working hard with our students to have such progress, and that's great to hear. And I think that's about it, just thank you.
Great, excellent. So I have one question. Also want to reiterate all of the positive things that everyone has said. The ELL program, I think is fantastic. Having all those kids now proficient is going to just increase what we have going on in our schools. I wanted to piggyback off of Jessica's, Ms. Brown's free and reduced lunch application. On the back-to-school night, are we going to have people manned at laptops so that when people go to do the back-to-school stuff, they have the opportunity to complete the application there?
Yes.
Okay.
So that is the plan. Thank you for bringing that more detail to that.
Oh, sorry, I always think it's easier if everyone's already going to be in one place, just corral them like they do with the concussion thing here. Just bring them in there. If you didn't go to the sports thing, you don't know what I'm talking about. We line kids up for concussions here, I guess, is what I'm not trying to say.
We don't line kids up for concussions.
That's what I said, not line, I not have them, to make sure they're healthy.
We test them to make sure that.
Right, we get a baseline.
I just want to note for the record that Mr. Sahu is back from summer vacation, and he joined us at 6:06 p.m. Yes, welcome, Mr. Sahu.
Thank you.
Summer vacation, you were a big man on campus down in DC.
Yeah, the mic is new. No
Mic is
green
new.
light.
There's no touching. It's always on.
Interesting. Right. It's been a very busy summer, to say the least. And now I found out recently, like in the past month, I'm going to be going back and forth between New Hampshire and DC over the school year. So
Oh, wow.
it's going to be fun convincing my teachers to let me skip class every now and then, but we'll see how it goes.
I can write a note.
Fantastic. But right, it's been a great summer. Coming back, a lot of new stuff, new mics, new superintendent, new but not new, returning, I don't want to use the word old.
You can use it.
Former Board of Education member, welcome. And then, the new middle school is actually in my neighborhood. So driving back in, was a surprise seeing all the metal pillars and everything, so that's cool. But there was a lot of fantastic work. I was watching some of the meetings in my spare time. I don't know why, but I did. Keeping up, but I'm just like, thank you guys for all the great work. And if I have any more comments on what went on over the summer, maybe in the next meeting, I'll bring it up. But going back to some of the stuff going on at South, we have our freshman night tomorrow at 5 p.m. So, you know, if you're an incoming freshman or family of an incoming freshman, like, please come in. Our administration, our guidance department will be there, and then there's going to be members of our National Honor Society giving, you know, tours and like guiding students around just to the school. And additionally, schedules are going to come out tomorrow, so, you know, that's the day where you start bugging your guidance counselor. But thank you all. That's all I have tonight.
What time is it tomorrow?
5 to 6:30 p.m.
6:30. Okay, thank you.
And then North is on Wednesday night.
Okay.
I have 6 down, but I don't know if that's correct. The other high school news is I heard that the high school email passwords were reset.
Right.
Yep, we got an email today.
So,
Right. So if you changed your email in the past year and you want to change it again, go for it. I know I am going to.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Well, that was your student member comment. I skipped over the intro for that. Do you have anything else to add? Formally introducing the student board member comment?
No, nothing for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so nothing on committee, nothing on budget. Now we'll go into finance and operations. Ms. Johnson, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you. Tonight, where Mr. Donovan isn't here, Mr. Smith is here to answer any questions, and we figured there might be some questions on the recommendation for the Santa Life proposal
Okay.
tonight.
We can just have Mr. Smith come down so that we don't have to interrupt your
Exactly.
train of thought, so. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Pleasure.
And the mics are always on.
And also, in case there's any questions on the regenerative roots for the orchard.
Okay.
Orchard. So with that said, on our Committee on Finance and Operations met on August 9th, 2022, I moved to approve the grant-funded proposal for regenerative roots for the orchard at the Nashua High School North.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Claffey. Any discussion? I think this sounds fantastic. Is there a time, when is it going to start?
They're going to start this fall, actually. I mean, the best
Nice.
time to plant is after the heat passes, so September, October.
Yeah, I was kind of skimming through the meeting, and I know you had said something about sports, and I don't know.
Yeah, our main concern is the irrigation is impacted, but we'll work with them to make sure the trees are planted in the proper places.
That's really cool.
And in case people don't know where it's going to be, it's at where the front of the building was supposed to be, which is now the back of the building.
Yep.
So that's where everything is going to be planted.
is that what the painted lines are for, or is that something else?
There was a diagram, I don't know if you got in your package or not. Do you see a map kind of like this?
Yep.
In your package? So this is the back of the building, and there's actually an existing garden
Yep.
off to the side, so the trees would be right in front of that.
Okay, so no, that's
So I
not
don't-
what the
I don't
painted
think
lines
there's
are
any
back there.
painted lines there.
No,
I think I saw those too.
yeah, I don't know what they're for.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
I move to accept the proposal as written, the amount not to exceed $600,000 to fund from escrow for Santa Life.
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Any comments or questions? Ms. Raymond?
Can you remind me which schools exactly this is for?
It's for, let's see if you want to jump
I
in
can do
here?
it.
I know some of them.
I got it right in front of me.
Okay, I don't have it in front of me.
So Emmer Street, Elementary, Broad Street Elementary, Charlotte Avenue Elementary, Fairgrounds Elementary, Ledge Street Elementary, Sunset Heights Elementary, Franklin Street, and the classroom wings at Fairgrounds Middle School.
Okay, thank you.
If I could add, those schools were selected because this is an induct system, and the elementary schools that are not getting the system are not getting it because they don't have air handlers and ducted systems.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, who seconded it?
Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown?
And I believe that Maine, Dunstable, and Birch Hill, since they're kind of the open concept schools, when they get their refurbishment, their plan is to put a better quality HVAC system in with that?
Yes, so my hope is as the construction budget comes together is to install the same system at those two schools.
Thank you.
And I just want to let everybody know that I'm still kind of fighting for, and Mr. Claffey and I both were saying that, it's really not fair that not all the schools have this and not all the elementary schools. We know that Maine Dunstable does have the portable ones, and which was the other school?
They're kind of spread around. Dr. Crisp has some, and Mount Pleasant has some.
And so the goal is, if they all had the HVAC, that we could do it the right way, not the right or wrong way, but the way it could be. That would be the perfect scenario, but it's not a perfect world. But to try to get this into as many schools as we can, so our staff, our teachers, our students can hopefully be healthier, especially during the winter months. We can open the windows, but we're not going to open up the windows so much in the winter with the fresh air flowing. So this is why I've been really pushing for this in the schools.
Well, so I know we talked about this in the JSSBC meeting, because because the ducts are already open, we're able to put them in easier, and we're able to do it through there. So aren't there other schools, in addition to the ones that you just said, that are going through that committee to getting the Santa Life? Or is that the list that you gave us, including those?
The list, this is a separate list. This is just based on the escrowed funds.
Right.
Birch Hill Main deal that's the upcoming renovation.
Right.
We discussed this during the middle school project, and
Right.
we decided to hold off until that budget became clearer. But my hope is that we could afford to do it in the middle schools, but that decision is at least a year off.
Yep.
So that really leaves 4 elementary schools and 2 high schools that we don't have a current plan for.
And Mr. Donovan said, as the time goes, we'll see if there's any more money that we can use from the budget to see if we can do anything. Am I correct, Mr. Smith?
Yes, and just to give you a sense for cost, to do the high schools with the same system, you're a little over $1 million. And then the other 4 elementary schools is about $300,000, so it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but, when you look at the scheme of things here, it's better to sometimes spend this and keep everybody healthy than to have everybody sick again and not be able to be in school. And we spend money on other things, right or wrong. And this is something that I feel that is right for everybody. So time will tell, I guess. But with that said, I made the motion.
Okay. So all those in favor, or any other comments or questions? No? Okay.
Anybody
All
second?
those,
Okay.
Ms. Brown did. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
And I move to approve the contract with Rethink for the 2022-23 school year for the 35 special ed teachers and 90 students with autism for $15,700 to be funded from the special ed IDEA grant.
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. You guys had a really interesting meeting the other day. Also interesting meetings, Committee on Policy. I will give the floor to you, Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. Before Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Leaves, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Smith for installing the rails here in the boardroom for me, so that we can have our student art again without it hopefully falling off the walls or ripping the paint. It's so nice to come in here and see the student work displayed.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, Also, thank you for the nice new flagpole. Fresh paint. It looks very lovely in here.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Committee on Policy. We met on the 16th. We were very busy this month, so I'm going to dive right in on it. The first policy is, I'm going to make the motion and then I'll explain it. So I move that we approve policy BBB, Board Organization.
Does anyone want to second that?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darling.
For some reason, I was waiting for more letters.
No, so BBB talks about when we have our first meeting of the year. Really the only change to this policy from previous is that prior to this, it was required to be at 7 p.m. the first Monday or Tuesday after inauguration, which is the soonest we can have it. But 7 p.m., we've been having our meetings at 6 since COVID. It seems to be working well, so I don't see why we need to prescribe a specific time. That's it. No other changes.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. I move that we rescind policy 1129 caucus.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Yep.
Any comments or questions? You guys had a spirited discussion in your...
We did have a lot of talk about this. At the end of the day, I think the quick and easy summary of it is that we're not caucusing. We haven't in anyone's memory, including people who have been on the board in the past and come back. But we are still having our organizational meeting to have those conversations about who should take what role within the board each year. So this just seemed like an additional meeting that we haven't been utilizing. So.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. I move that we approve policy BEDG, meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. This one is one that we have been working on for a little bit. As everybody knows, the state updated the law regarding what we are required to include in our minutes, how we document our non-public meetings. So Ms. Kinsella and I sat down and we looked at what the School Board Association had, what the law says, and what we had. And we discovered that our minutes this past year are not as extensive as they need to be. So we updated this policy to make sure that it's not just the motions, we also need a description of discussions that were had. And we updated the policy to make sure that it was very clear about the requirements of non-public meeting minutes and the new requirement that we sit down periodically throughout the year and review our non-public minutes to see if they need to be unsealed, which we need to put on our calendar. So,
Yep.
So we should be doing that at least once a year, but probably more than that.
It's one of those things where we can actually make a committee to review, and then they can meet quarterly, and then we can just bring it forward to the board. But it can also be something where we can keep a running list of, like, let's say, really the only time that we would be unsealing minutes is if a contract had happened, went through, and then everybody already knew the outcome of what the offers were and what the payout was for, like, construction type stuff.
Yep.
So we can actually keep, like, you or I or the president or the clerk could just keep a running list of ones that we know are going to be qualifying for unsealing. And then when it comes time to review them, we already know what to look at. So it just decreases, work smarter, not harder. So there's a way that we can do this and make it easier so it's not so redundant for everybody. But it's pretty clearly laid out in the law.
Okay. And the only other thing regarding this policy is that Ms. Kinsella went into, this is our minutes book, and she updated some of the templates that we have in here so that it's a little easier to make sure that our minutes are representative of what they need to be. So we have more space for more words.
Yep.
Be good.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I'll let you go first.
Ms. Brown?
I recognize that this policy does fall in line with the current updated RSA. However, I won't be supporting it because I think we shouldn't be keeping to the minimum standards. I think we could actually be better, transparent, more transparent to the community if we were to go back to verbatim minutes, because I think our current minutes, or very thorough summary minutes, what we've been taking just isn't acceptable. So I won't be supporting this particular item.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. I agree with Ms. Brown, and I brought that up at the meeting also. Although they're getting a little better, but they're not where they need to be. When our board secretary left, we couldn't find anybody, however it was. I think we're at the point now that I agree, the transparency. It's hard to sit down, even us board members, and when we have to go back and go over a meeting, you got to sit there, watch it, stop it, write it down, go back, forward, you know. It's harder than to sit and read it. If you're going someplace, you could sit and just read it. But I just can't support this. I understand what the RSA is all about. They've dropped it down to as minimal as they can do it, so you still have some teeth in the minutes, but it doesn't tell a lot. It doesn't tell the story of what the whole conversation was about and what everybody says, because you're just very minimal.
Yep.
So I won't be supporting this, but I did support it to come out of committee for the full board to have a chance to vote on it and read it, the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The example that came up as we were discussing this was regarding verbatim versus a summary of minutes. And one of the committee meetings that frequently has a lot of meat in it is the JSSBC. And in the committee meeting for policy and then other discussions, we were talking about how the Joint Special has a lot of interesting stuff if you're interested in it, but you don't necessarily need to know, as you're reading the minutes, the half an hour long discussion of who said what about this grass type versus that grass type versus this other grass type. What you need to know is that a discussion of grasses occurred and where to go to get the PowerPoint of it, right? So there was a discussion back and forth about, do we need to know quotes of who exactly said what, or do we need the meat of it? And Ms. Kinsella, I think, was very clear with us when she left our policy committee meeting that she understood that we needed more meat, but maybe not quotes. So, and she's been very open about saying that if we, as we're reviewing the minutes, if a board member feels like we missed something in the meeting minutes that the staff has typed up, just to send an email over to Dr. Andre's office, and they'll take a look at it and work with us to make sure that it's representative of the meeting. So I think there'll be a little bit of a learning curve, but I think this policy moves us in a better direction than where we were a month ago. So.
Ms. Brown?
In response to that, and this is making a mistake, not how much I respect Ms. Kinsella and her good work for the district, but how would a board member know if they'd missed something to add to the minutes if they were reading the minutes of the meeting without also going back and watching the YouTube video? Are we expected to watch the video and read the minutes for every single committee? I mean, because I think that the purpose of thorough minutes is so that you don't have to go back and do double duty if you're not serving on a particular committee.
Yep, and I think that the comment about if we think they missed anything, it's from the people. We should all be reviewing the minutes from the meetings that we're in. So at some point between now and our next meeting, we should all look at everything that's on the consent agenda to make sure that it accurately represents what happened in the last one. Now, do we all read that with a fine-tooth comb? Let's be honest, probably not, but we should all be looking at them to say, hey, we missed this huge thing that happened, and then vote on the consent agenda based on us affirming that, yeah, that's what the minutes say. I know for other boards sometimes attach their meeting minutes to their packets when they send out the packets. JSSBC attaches the meeting minutes to the agenda so that no one has an excuse not to have it and look at it. Our packets are already sometimes 100 pages long, so I don't know that we want to scan and email all of those when they're readily accessible on the website, but that is the expectation, that before you vote on the consent agenda, that you've actually looked at the items on the consent agenda to vote that yes, they're accurate or no, they're not. And I think we've had board members very clearly in the past say, I don't think this is accurate, and vote against it. So.
Ms. Darling?
One of the reasons I was advocating more for closer to the verbatim than the generalized that we have is more because the way that I learn best is from other people, what other people say and how things that you guys reference, if it's something I'm interested in or curious about, I look it up. But with a lot of the minutes that we have now, that's one of the things that's missing, is when somebody brings up a good point that's not necessarily the meat of the topic, but something that we might want to look into in the future, those are lost. And I love watching the YouTube, but I swear to God, now that I'm on it, I don't want to watch it anymore. I watched it just fine before I was at this table. So now I would prefer black and white text, not my zits. So
I don't typically want to watch for 3 hours either.
No. Occasionally they'll come up with like chapters on the YouTube videos. Like when you scroll through, it'll say like what part of the discussion that you're in. But it only happens like on my home computer, not at my, I mean, I'm never on my work computer doing that stuff. But sometimes it pops up that way. Ms. Lampier?
I just wanted to say that, so I'm going to speak in favor of not having verbatim minutes, because before I was elected to the board, I was reading the minutes to try and figure out, what the school board was like and who was there, and it was like watching a soap opera. I mean, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this one said that one, and that one said this, and this one must not like that one, and that kind of thing is probably not good to have everything written down like that. It's so much easier to work together when you don't have everything everyone said down in black and white. So, yeah.
it's easier if people watch what they say and only say things they would be okay with being in black and white.
Yeah.
We're all taught to chew our words before we speak them, right?
I just feel it's a lot less drama not having it verbatim, so.
Ms. Oden?
I have a question. How long does YouTube keep
Forever.
They keep it forever?
Well, I think at a certain point it was when Jimmy was just telling us about this a couple weeks ago, that when they reformatted YouTube, a lot of the old videos didn't carry over because they didn't upload the video to a format that could then be reproduced in the new format, and they lost a bunch of old videos. So I think at a certain point, if YouTube does something to upgrade their server, then we're at the mercy of if our videos make the cut or not, which is why we keep, I mean, it's a privilege for everybody to be able to have the YouTube videos, but really our public record is those minutes, are those minutes.
And we have the audio recordings too. So don't forget that. The district does store the audio recordings.
I just think it's kind of wasteful, because usually it's one topic that somebody might be interested in. Just go back and watch that section. But to pay somebody to do verbatim minutes, I don't think is a good use of our money. Go back and watch the YouTube, or comment, you want to update the minutes so far. I think that's been brought up. So I really don't see, I go back to the early 90s when it was just a shell. I don't think the value of verbatim minutes is a good use of our money.
They were also saying that sometimes with the crosstalk that we have in here, that when you do the verbatim, it's really hard to hear and understand. So when you're trying to get those verbatim, especially in the moments where we're going back and forth, where it's a more impassioned discussion, a lot of that stuff gets lost because they can't hear it and they can't figure out who's saying what. And then whoever's doing those minutes ends up, or when they were doing verbatim, they end up putting, indiscernible. And then that whole section is no longer documented. So everything has an issue with it, but. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. Well, when you were saying that with the quotes, on people, that's a big thing because that's part of the subject. And I don't feel that it's drama in the verbatim minutes. It's just showing the discussion and how the discussion is taking place and why the discussion is taking place, basically. And you're hearing every side of the issue. And so when you get the minutes and you're reading it, and if you're going to vote on it at the full board, what you said in committee and what you're reading it later on, it can sway you one way or the other because now you're recapping it. Listening to it, when I go on YouTube, I start going down the line, trying to figure out where I was and what I want to hear, and then I got to go back, like I said, and forth. And I'm just not going to support this. I just think that I don't think it's a waste of money. I think we waste money on more things that we shouldn't than to have something like this for people who don't watch YouTube or can't do it auditorily. There are people that can't do it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes?
I actually wanted to, listening to the discussion, I just wanted to, add something, just for clarification, what you guys are voting on. It's not, whether or not to have verbatim minutes, right? It's, improving the current minutes to be more descriptive, I believe.
Yes, if you look on the attachments that go with tonight's agenda, it's policy BEDG, and there's a lot of red here. Just showing Mr. Sahu on my screen here. So we have taken what was a pretty short policy, and really, it was like 3 paragraphs long, and really fleshed it out with all of the required content and the legal requirements for minutes, and then special provisions for non-public meetings. So we've never been required to have verbatim, but historically, there was a period of 17 years where the district had a transcriptionist who did verbatim minutes, but she retired in September. And the district attempted to hire a replacement and was unable to find someone because it's just not a skill that people are trained in these days.
Right.
So the district office staff have been doing the minutes. And when Ms. Kinsella and I pulled this out, we looked at the minutes and decided that what had been done wasn't enough. And so starting in July, she's starting to flesh it out a little bit more to go along with what we looked up for the law and et cetera. So we're talking about not verbatim, but more than just the motions and votes.
Right. So since we're not voting, since you guys aren't voting on verbatim, I'm not going to say I'm in favor. I think that verbatim would be better or not. But I do think that something that was kind of brought up in point by a few of the board members is transparency on the board. And I think from my perspective, I know that everyone here tries their best to be as transparent as possible. But I do think that there have been more a handful of occasions where there's significant information that doesn't, I feel get conveyed in the proper channels or just as effectively as we'd hope. And I think that we should, and I think that the board should consider whatever it may be to improve the transparency, and what maybe it is verbatim minutes down the line, but I do think, right, sometimes listening in on the conversation, like Ms. Lamphere said, maybe it is a little bit like a soap opera, and there are some moments of passionate discussion, but I do think that some of those moments are pretty valuable, and it's I think it's important to go back and understand maybe why a board member felt the way that they did, or try to understand context in a vote or anything. But I just think that like the community. I think that they deserve more transparency, and having more transparency allows the board to be held more accountable, as well as the district.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Dr. Andrade?
Yeah, I truly appreciate the conversation tonight, and I see both sides of the coin. Just as we make a decision, I want to commend Ms. Kinsella of all the work that she's been doing for her time and effort. And I think no matter how we vote tonight, I think whether we have to recognize the time and effort going into moving forward. So again, at the pleasure of the board, we might have to recognize there might be an investment. As we mentioned, there used to be 2.7 people supporting the superintendent's office and the board. We are down to like 1.9 FTEs right now. Supporting the superintendent's office and the Board of Education. So again, as we move forward and we want more detail, it's to form and function, so it might be an investment on, if we want verbatim, that we would require another person possibly to support the board in that fashion. Again, that's no disrespect to the current superintendent's office, but again, we're down personnel, so we're doing the best, and I have the utmost respect for Ms. Kinsella and everything that she's been doing, and her professionalism, her skills, and her knowledge. So, but I think it's the more detail and we want more transparency, we also have to think about investing in that support.
I agree completely. I noticed, and Ms. Kinsella is going to listen to this later and not be able to see everyone nodding when you were talking about her professionalism and dedication. So
Yes.
I'm going to say that out loud so she hears it tomorrow or Wednesday when she listens to the tape. All right.
So all those in favor of approving policy BEDG, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, can I have names for the nays, just so I have it proper?
Ms. Darling, Ms. Brown, and Ms. Johnson.
Okay, that's what I thought. Did I miss anyone? No? Okay.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, the next one is policy GBEBB. So I move that we approve policy GBEBB, electronic communication between employees and students.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darling.
So we had quite a bit of discussion about this one as well at the policy committee. The board discovered this summer that we did not have a good enough policy regarding how staff should be communicating with students using electronic means. Our policy was, I don't know, like dated 10 years old or something. And technology has changed significantly since it was first written. So after discussion amongst the board and with administration, we've updated this policy. We've changed the lettering to align with New Hampshire School Board Association lettering. And then the most important part of this policy is that red line on paragraph 1, 2, 3 that says all communications with students or families must be via district-approved pathways or applications. And this is important for everyone to note because we want to make sure that our staff and our students are both protected so that we don't have staff and students using text messages or non-district approved message apps to communicate with each other where, an employee could be put in an uncomfortable position or a student could be put in an uncomfortable position. So this is kind of a safety measure. The other big change on this one is just to note that communication between staff and students is part of the district archives. It always has been, but we're just going to underline that. And it could be subject to the right to know law depending on how FERPA affects it, which is the federal student privacy laws. So I know that there was, I went to the Nashua North Sports Night with my child earlier this summer. And I know that, at least for the sport that my child is doing, they're changing the way that they communicate about changes and practices and stuff from what they did last year to make it comply with this policy, but also work better for everybody. And I expect that Dr. Andrade and Mr. Pasca and Mr. Rodriguez in IT will have a fun job trying to figure out what the best communication platform is. Because I don't know, but enjoy, have fun with that.
Our field hockey team has started doing Google Classroom, and it's actually working out really well. So I just get notifications on my phone, like today's was canceled.
Nice. Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Cross country at North has a Google Classroom, but then they're also utilizing email. So
Perfect.
that's what I've gotten, but I don't know what all the other student athletics are doing. So
Do we have a second for this before we start discussion?
Ms. Starling seconded.
You seconded this? Okay. Ms. Brown and then Ms. Lampier?
I'm supportive of this policy. I was actually just going to request a follow-up information from central office. Could we get a list of what's going to be the approved applications? Thanks.
That's actually part of my question, too. I didn't see texting listed on here as something that is definitely not approved, so I wasn't sure how the district, if the district was going to approve texting at all.
That's what we're trying to avoid right now.
Yes, okay.
As we go through this process, as Ms. Brown noted out, just looking at there's a variety of different platforms and things that not only the athletics, but also the schools and teachers are using too. So we're trying to compile all that information and then come out with some of the approved pathways forward, which is why we didn't list all of those things in the policy, but then we have to kind of identify what it is we will be utilizing and supporting going forward for each school year.
All right, thanks.
It's probably important not to identify just in case we want to change and then we don't have to come back to policy and redo policies as applications update and change names. And
Right, but I don't think that direct cell phone to cell phone texting, SMS messages, are a district-approved method for communicating with students. I don't think they've ever been a district-approved method, but now the policy very clearly says that you have to get district approval in order to utilize something to communicate with students. So hopefully that will ease the mind of parents, but also our staff, because again, I don't want any of our staff members getting into a situation where they're getting inappropriate information on their cell phones, because they have a right to have their own personal privacy as well. So we want to make sure that our students are protected on their personal cell phones and our staff are as well.
can I add something that we may want to look into? Because I know we have board liaisons to our students. Does the board fall under this same policy? Because I would hate for them to be put in, our board members and our students to be put in the same situation. I know we've chatted over the phone, texted, can you talk in like 15 minutes? So if we want to look at, maybe looking at NHSBA about how the board can best interact with our student liaisons so that they're not put in the same possible situation. So hopefully we can look into that as well.
That's a good idea to talk to Dr. Andrade about.
I got your number.
That seems like something that the superintendent could advise us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would recommend at this time that, even as board members, that you're not texting students, that you would follow this policy and use either email, your BOE email account or a Google account. But, I would highly recommend we avoid texting students.
Yep. Okay. Just wanted to get that on the record.
Can I just add a couple of questions? So, reading the existing policy right now, it doesn't seem to me that texting is prohibited.
It's not an approved means of communication.
It doesn't, but it's also not prohibited because it's 10 years old, people weren't texting.
Right.
I'm concerned about whether we're putting fall coaches in a bind. We don't have an approved list. So, I guess maybe this is a question for Dr. Andre. So have coaches been told no texting?
They've been It's been strongly recommended by the athletic director to all fall coaches that texting is not a viable means of communication. So she'll be monitoring that, but she's had the conversation with all fall coaches to use other means of communication besides texting.
So are school boards supposed to, are we supposed to initiate policy or adopt policy?
Both.
Okay.
Sorry, that was jinx.
Odd thing, but like just as a parent note, I know I personally would feel better about a coach communicating with my child through a written format, even if it was text, over personal phone calls. If only because then there's the evidence on both sides and.
Well, I don't think that we want personal phone calls to students' cell phones either. That seems like
I mean, like,
Okay,
in the
I
case of
have to
board member
say-
and liaison, that's, I have no other method, so.
Speaking with coaches, high school coaches, there are situations where an athlete needs needs a quick response to a certain situation. And I think having the same rules for elementary age or even middle school age students, we might need to look at giving high school athletes a little more autonomy.
So,
And saying district-approved email is going to protect our children, I mean, the worst thing can happen, email, however, it could happen in a conversation.
My email's been too compromised too many times.
No, but I mean, you could have an inappropriate face-to-face conversation between a coach
yep.
and a player. So I just think that we're telling coaches right now, you can't do this, but we don't have an approved list ready yet. Is that
What
fair?
if we did parental
I'm
consent?
sorry.
I'm sorry,
I just want to ask. So this list, is that list available to coaches, fall coaches right now?
I can get that list from the
I'm not
athletic-
trying to put you on the
No,
spot. I'm just
I
asking.
can get the list from the athletic director if you,
Oh, I
you
don't
choose.
want it, but I just think,
But,
Yep.
but there's,
I feel like this committee made a decision last week without the approval or even a discussion before the whole board.
I think that that's what the committee's job is, first. Second, I would say that this isn't something that came out of nowhere, that the committee just up and did all by themselves. There were a lot of administrative meetings that happened non-publicly because some things are appropriately non-public. Anything having to do with personnel or reputations would be non-public. That happened with the majority of the board and administration, or administration and policy, and the athletic director to come up with a solution, at least a first draft of a solution that would work. My suggestion is that we approve the policy and we allow Ms. Gingras to come back to us if, as school starts in the next week, and they find that, there's a coaching issue because of this policy, I would rather have her come back to us and say, here's our issue and here's my recommendation for fixing it, than leave the policy as it was, which was leaving our students and our staff in situations that were potentially inappropriate and in some cases could result in liability.
if I just may, so texting has been an issue around the country for a number of years and strongly recommended against. I know the district uses one of the immediate situations might be the Remind app, right? So you're still getting the notification the same way that you would get a text message. The protection there for whether it's a coach is that the athletic director or somebody else, there's a documentation of the communication. In text messaging, it just gets too messy, and we've seen cases around the country, again, protecting our students and our coaches on any type of inappropriate conversations kind of going forward. So this isn't just a Nashua, but it has been a trend for across the country for a number of years, strongly discouraging employees of directly texting adult to students. So again, we have a number of applications such as Remind, Team Snap, SportsU, Blackboard, team websites. So there's communication that is team sanctioned without going into a text message to get the numbers out.
One last?
Yeah.
Try to find out neighboring district policy, and from what I could find, Manchester and Hudson don't prohibit texting.
Right.
They do a nice job of delineating the parameters, the limits, the appropriateness, but they don't ban it.
Right. I'm just going to say that I think there's a non-public discussion to be had regarding this if you want more information. But our policy as it was, even though it was very clear about professional, accessible, transparent communication, was not sufficient.
Ms. Brown has had her hand, and then Ms. Johnson.
Sure.
So I guess I'm going to digress a little bit backwards. It's actually a little bit in support of what Dr. Andrade said. When it comes to the transparency of communication, that can actually help all the students on the teams, even in a real-time manner. Also, their parents know when to have them different places. We may need to make some kind of financial investment from the district to purchase some kind of a software. I would actually expect that we'd have buy-in from the athletic department and also get lots of feedback from the coaches and Ms. Gingras as well. Because now technology has advanced enough that on your cell phone, you can have the application, you can have the computer, the web interface, and essentially it is texting, but it's trackable in real time. It can go out to the whole team at a time. So if you said, hey, Joey, why are you late for the bus? Get over here, we're leaving in 2 minutes. You can send that out directly. They'll get a notification on their phone. That kind of technology is available now. And so it's something that we can do, but it's also, I agree with keeping it safe. As far as this particular coaching season, I think this policy is to protect the teachers as much and the coaches as much as it is to protect the students and the families. And if there's an emergency situation, where for some reason there would need to be a direct text to a parent, I would expect that our coaches would act with professionalism and follow the TAP rules that we've got discussed here. Words that are courteous, conscientious, general business-like manner, but that is really a last resort. So I think that this is a good policy, a good place to start. And then if we want to dive into something with either more time investment or more financial investment in the future, then I think there is further discussion to be had. And I think the technology does exist now that it wouldn't even be that difficult to implement.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. I agree with Ms. Brown and Dr. Andre. He just read off a list of different apps that we could use. And with that said, we just have to pick and choose for what sport, so everybody is within the same app. So everybody gets the message. It's a safety net for the district, for the parent, and for the students. And I agreed on this policy, and I think we just have to fill in the blanks now with Ms. Gingrich on what she's going to be, with Dr. Andre, sitting down with him and making a decision, what are we going to use across the district or for different sports for this year. And I think it keeps us all safe. Thank you.
Mr. Sahu?
I just had just a clarification question for Dr. Andrade. So, when it comes to student members of the board and their communication with members of the Board of Education, so are we to now just use recommended their board emails and such? Because every single member of the board's personal email or whatever preferred email, as well as their preferred phone number, is up on public domain, and I've used it numerous times to actually call every single one of them, every single member of the board multiple times, mostly for my own lobbying purposes, but just down the road, because their phone numbers and such is public. So I feel I understand when it comes to coaches and staff and administration, but I think that it's kind of different when you're on the board and their phone numbers are public for public use to reach out to them. you know.
Yeah, so I think you just hit the nail on the head. What's your intent of why you're calling, right? It's not an ongoing communication. You're calling for advocacy in that aspect of it. So it's not that, again, you're communicating, it's an ongoing communication. Most of it should be in writing, but you're calling as like a constituent, right? You're advocating, and that is public information. But I think it's a little different when it's a student to a teacher, a student to a coach in a private setting, right? So when you're emailing the BOE or you're calling, again, you're advocating for a purpose on a public information, so they may be able to disclose it. So again, we're trying to protect both the students and the adults in this process. So we could talk about it further, but I would strongly recommend that if you reach out as a text at the beginning, that it turns into a different platform.
No, I totally understand. I just want to have that like line drawn for the clarification.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We live in a weird world now. We have to feel like we cover our buns on just about everything, which is unfortunate. We should have more trust in our world, but things happen. We have to draw those lines that may not necessarily need to be drawn, but need to be drawn. Any other comments or questions in regards? Yes, Dr. Sarfty.
I just wanted to share something. So I went to meet the coaches night in SAU 39 a couple of weeks ago with my son, and I can tell you that the athletic director spent about 20 minutes talking about their new policy that prohibits students from texting coaches and teachers.
Yeah.
We're trendsetters.
Right? We're just making it policy. Okay, so any other, just want to make note, Ms. Darling stepped out around 7:12, so she is not here for the vote. But all those in favor of approving GBEBB, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, and as we continue to talk about students and athletics, the next policy, I'm going to move to approve JICFA, which is hazing. It was a heavy meeting last time. So we have updated our hazing policy to more closely align with state laws regarding hazing. Just to be clear, oh, I forgot to wait for a second. Can someone second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Ms.
Johnson. One of the things that we talked about in the committee meeting was what's hazing versus bullying. And just to be clear, hazing is a legal term. It is a crime. It is beyond just kids being mean to each other or bullying. So we've included that definition within the policy. So if parents or students want to look it up, it's right there. And then very clearly in this policy is the consequences, and then the next policy we'll talk about is our response procedure. So.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, all in favor of approving policy JICFA, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. So the next one is JICFA-R. I move that we approve JICFA-R, hazing, reporting, investigation, and response procedure. We actually last looked at this procedure in 2017, and the procedure is pretty sound, so we did not have any recommendations for updates. However, we're required by law to reapprove things as we look at them.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot to wait for a second.
Can I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Lamb. Oh, I'll go with Ms. Lampier this time.
That's fine.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
All right. And then the last policy, no, second to last policy. I move that we approve JLDBA, Behavior Management and Intervention for Students. This is another one, I'm sorry, this is the one that we last looked up at 2017. Ms. Bagley was kind enough to double check the law for us to make sure that we are still in compliance and there haven't been any major changes. So I recommend that we approve JLDBA as is.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving policy JLDBA, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. And this time it's the last one. I move to rescind policy DD, funding proposals, grants, and special projects. And if I can have a second, I'll say why.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Lampier.
All right, so the reason that I'm moving to rescind this particular policy is because it's fairly old. It's from 2007, and since 2007, we've adopted policy DAF. We also have the general assurances document from the state that didn't exist back then. And then we go over all of our proposals in both our finance committee meetings and in our budget committee meetings. And then typically special projects will go through the JSSBC. So there are a number of other ways that we meet the legal requirements for funding proposals. And this particular policy is not associated with any state or federal law.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of rescinding policy DD, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, and that's it for policy. We have a lot of more fun stuff coming up next month. Yay.
You guys are busy, man.
Yeah, we've been really, really productive in policy this summer. So.
You liking it, Mr. Pasca?
Didn't know what I was getting myself into.
It's a very thorough meeting. C&E is being held next month. Ms. Brown, when is that going to be?
September 19th.
Awesome, thank you. And we had our Committee on Human Resources tonight. I will let Ms. Gilio speak to that.
Hi, we met earlier this evening, and I'm looking for a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
I don't know who's
I'll second.
Okay, so I heard Ms.
Thank you,
Johnson and then
ladies.
Ms. Brown.
Okay, so we bring forth, recommend to you personnel recommendations dated August 22nd, 2022.
Wait, we need to vote on that motion
Oh,
to
I'm
suspend the
sorry,
rules.
yeah.
Sorry, I was waiting. I was watching Heather, right?
Sorry.
That's okay. So on the motion to suspend the rules, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Also want to note, Ms. Darling came back in at 7:21. Okay, take it away, Ms. Gilio.
So I would make a motion that we approve the personnel recommendations dated August 22nd, 2022.
So moved?
Second.
Oh, second, sorry.
Okay.
Are there
So
any
Ms. Gilio and
questions?
Ms. Brown,
Gilio made the motion, Ms. Brown has seconded it.
any comments or questions? I love the list.
No, just yay, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome. I'm so excited to have such a long list tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I think HR is the only one who's been busier than policy.
Yeah,
Good job.
and welcome, Ms. Duffy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving the personnel recommendations dated 8/22/22, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. I also move that we approve the administrative recommendations as follows. I need to read the entire statement, right?
Yeah, I have it written down as, the motion is to approve Tara Mcdonald as Assistant Principal of Mount Pleasant Elementary School at a salary of $77,063. And then do we need a second motion for Ms. Tufts or all in one?
I think we could do them both together.
Okay. And to approve Theodora Tufts as the assistant principal at Birch Hill Elementary School at an annual salary of $82,100.
So did someone second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Okay. Any comments or questions? Seeing none? Did you have something to say?
No,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
excited. I'm really happy that they both will be full-staffed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that I thought to write this down during Ms. Giulio's meeting earlier.
Proper preparation. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Dr. Andre, do you want to speak to your newest hires?
Yeah, it's my honor and privilege to introduce Theodora Tufts, who's going to be the assistant principal at Birch Hill. Theo is coming to us from Hudson, where she's been an administrator for the last 6 years. Prior to that, she was a special educator at both the middle school and high school. When I spoke with the superintendent there, he verbalized that she's a top-notch administrator, that she's going to do really well at the elementary level. Her knowledge of curriculum instruction, again, at the middle school, high school, will easily translate to the elementary. So I think it adds to our teaching and learning team that will have vertical articulation through that position, through Theo, K through 12. So while Hudson is sad to lose her, we're happy to welcome her aboard, and she's going to be a great addition to Birch Hill. I also want to introduce Tara Mcdonald. She will be the assistant principal at Mount Pleasant. Tara has been in our district for the last 15 years, so it's nice again to have that leadership pipeline from the classroom through our assistant principal's position. So Tara has a vast knowledge and experience in special education, so she'll be a huge advocate to all students at Mount Pleasant. I also had a great opportunity to sit down and talk to her about her vision of teaching and learning and how she could support every student in that building, as well as our educators and paraprofessionals. So she has a great outlook on what instruction looks like in the classroom. I know that she'll be a valuable support to the Mount Pleasant community.
Excellent. Well, welcome. We're very excited to have everybody. Okay, next up on the docket, it's the Ad Hoc Naming Committee, which is over and done with now. Liaison reports, I don't think we have any JSSBC.
Just the update about the groundbreaking, and then JSSBC was moved till tomorrow night, so if anybody wants to
7
attend,
o'clock.
it's tomorrow night, because Thursday is the Nashua goes back to school.
Yep,
Thank
What
you.
time is it tomorrow, 7?
7.
Oh, good.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I'm on the JSSBC and I didn't know.
Yep, tomorrow at 7.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, got a busy day tomorrow. Okay, so next on the list is the recommendation to dissolve the middle school naming committee, which we don't need anymore. So to clean up our agenda, because it keeps coming up, just to be able to delete. I'm looking for a motion to dissolve the middle school naming committee effective August 22nd, 2022.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of dissolving, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Just like to delete things. That's really what I like to do. We're going to be going into new business. The new BOE committee assignments, I have to welcome Ms. Oden back in. She expressed to me what her interests were in regards to committees, and it was just a little bit of moving things around. I have asked Mr. Claffey to be the alternate on policy, so that's if we need you to make a quorum, or if, I mean, you can show up to any committee meeting you want, but he has agreed to being the alternate for that, which will allow, well, moves around a little bit more, but for Ms. Oden to be on the HR committee.
Okay.
Between Sharon and Dottie, Sharon, are you comfortable continuing being chair? Because Ms. Ziem was chair.
She was, and if Ms. Oden would like to be the chair, I would support that, because it seems to be that I'm having trouble adapting to all the ins and outs of how to run the meetings, and so.
I think for the record, I think she's doing amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not unwilling to continue, but I think I'm a long way from reaching the bar. Anyway,
It's
but I'm willing.
August. It's almost
And
September.
I love being on the HR committee, and I especially like doing interviews, and I'm welcoming Ms. Oden to join us.
Thank you.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no
I
button.
think she does a great job. It is a learning process, and it will, every now and then you do forget to suspend the minutes, but I think you're doing a great job, and I'd be happy to support you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
So just to make the minutes make sense to me, because I'm having difficulty following the conversation, policy will now be,
Heather, Christina, Paula. Sorry, I should be saying that last names.
Okay.
And then
Mr. Clay.
Mr. Claffey is the alternate. C&E stays the same. I mean, we're opening this up, so it's Ms. Brown, Ms. Lampier, Mr. Claffey, with Ms. Darling as the alternate. You all still good with that?
Okay.
Finance continues to be Ms. Johnson as chair, Mr. Claffey, Ms. Brown, and Ms. Lampier. We have to formally do this. They have switched alternate and main,
Oh,
so
so
that does
I
actually
do
have
need
to
to
go
write
down.
that
I
down.
said we would.
So.
I should have written this down for you. I'm not as
Yes, I know. So
conscientious
it's
as you are.
Ms. Johnson, Mr. Claffey,
Ms. Brown,
Ms. Brown.
and now the alternate is Ms. Lampier.
Okay. And then the alternate,
Yep. And then HR, and we can have a further discussion about this, because as I was doing this, Ms. Brown, you're on 3 of the 4 committees, which is a little ridiculous. Heather said that she wouldn't mind stepping in for HR the last time we were talking about this.
right, because
If you want to ease up, I mean, we're, at the beginning of the year, we had budget, we had the naming committee, we had a couple of other things going on, but we're kind of getting back down into the regular swing of things. If you want to flip-flop, because Heather only has one thing to do now, and clerk, but,
That's fine. I was actually originally the alternate on HR, and I
know.
just moved up when Ms. Ziem had gotten done.
Right.
So, I mean, I'll be happy to slide back to the alternate. I'm generally here, because if the meetings are going to stay at 5:30, I'm generally here, so it's not a big deal for me. It's already
Right.
built in my schedule, but I'll do whatever the committee asks, doesn't matter.
right, and Ms. Lampier had been voting on it earlier this evening on that committee, but the issue is the daytime interviews, I think.
Yes, I as of next week, I will have Fridays off. So I'm hoping to be able to attend any interviews that are on Fridays.
So, okay. So who's on this committee now? Ms.
If
Gilio
you're-
is the chair.
Chair.
Dottie.
Ms.
I'm sorry,
Oden.
Ms. Oden.
and then if you want to flip-flop with Jess, so Jess is the alternate, and you're, because I have her as 3, she has the most committees. She has 3 fulls and 1, well, no, I took her off as the alternate, but just to spread out the work, if you want to
Okay.
flip-flop with her, are you comfortable with that?
I have no problem with that. I've been doing that interviews this summer anyways.
Right. Cool.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. Just figure I would, an opportunity to spread the butter a little thinner around here. So,
Okay, so HR is now Ms. Gilio
chair,
as chair, Ms. Oden, Ms. Raymond, and Ms. Brown as the alternate.
yep.
And I'm not on the Human Resources anymore.
Do you want it?
Do you want to be on it?
I mean, no, that's fine, but So that means I'm on the curriculum and the JSSBC and the alternate on the finance.
Right.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Okay.
Madam Chair, the whole reason why I offered to switch was because I thought Ms. Lampier had, I was worried, just
Yeah.
overextended. So now we're back to, I'm perfectly fine going back to being an alternate on finance if you want to.
Because I miss it so much.
It's the best.
Are you serious? I just feel as if I only offered to do this because I thought you were on HR, and now we're back to where we were pre. So,
Yeah.
what's on you? Whatever you.
Yeah.
I think she wants it, man.
I can't. I never know. I can't read Miss Lampier.
Okay.
All right, so.
If she wants it back, it's all. I'll be alternate on 2 committees.
I have.
Okay, all right.
So, but before we formalize your writing, because I know we're just going to mess something up, we continue to have JSSBC on
Yes.
Thursday nights, which is not a great night for you.
Well, I'll be there tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Do you want to, I mean, we're
I
already.
no
in the
longer
middle-
work on well, I take.
We're already in the middle of kind of reworking this.
Yes.
Would you like to continue on, or is anybody interested? I know Ms. Johnson and Ms. Brown were on the committee before and enjoyed it. I spread it out a little bit because you were new. Just keep adding on Ms. Brown's plate.
I don't know if I have time to be on the JSSBC.
Okay.
so.
Ms. Johnson? No? Okay.
I liked it better back in 2000 to 2004 with the 2 high schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was because I was on it from the beginning.
Yep.
And it's hard to jump in right now with everything that's going on. It's- When you did 2 high schools, you understood what's going on, and now you're doing 3 middle schools and down to 1.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
it is a lot. So is anybody else interested in joining the JSSBC? So we'll just leave you on, show up when you can. That's perfectly fine. We often hit quorum, so that's fine.
If you need an alternate for the JSSBC, I could do that. Is there an alternate for that?
Well, I mean, it's such a big committee.
you need 6 people, you need 6 out of 10.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not even like just us, that's everyone else too. So,
So if we can get, typically at least 3 from the BOE and 3 from the BOA. We're good. All right, so I'm going to reread it. So the motion is to approve the updated committee assignments. And I'm just going to read it. Curriculum and evaluation is no change. JSSBC is no change. Policy is now, I wrote first names, so I'm just going to read it first names. Heather, Christina, Paula, and Neil is the alternate. Finance is Paula, Regan, Jessica, and Neil as the alternate. Okay.
It's going back.
Going back.
It's going back, so
Yep.
there's no change.
So no change for finance? Okay. And HR is Sharon, Dottie, Heather, with Jessica as the alternate.
is that it?
Okay, so really, the motion is, I'll make the motion. I move to approve the updated committee assignments of, policy will be Raymond, Darling, Johnson, and Claffey as an alternate. HR will be Giglio, Odin, Raymond, and Brown as an alternate.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll second that. Sorry.
That's okay. You can do it.
I did so much color, I ran out of highlighters and had to just start using like symbols for people.
Okay. Luck reading this.
So on the motion, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So I will now hand this over to Dr. Andre, but I wanted to, do you mind if I bring up the new business just really quickly, to get a consensus on things? So one of the things that we were talking about, new business tends to be like the bulk, the new stuff, the stuff that we tend to have more questions about. I mean, I know we have questions about committees, but technically those should happen in committee. Would you guys be opposed to putting new business at the beginning of the agenda when we're fresh and we're excited and we're not just kind of regurgitating information that's already been said in committee meetings?
Right. Well,
Are you guys okay if I flip the agenda around?
I mean, historically, if there's a presentation under, like, for an item under new business, historically, all through COVID and before, we would just ask for consensus to have that at the beginning of the agenda. The only reason that we have it kind of at the end is so that we don't make any votes before public comment. So that's my thought on that. We cannot vote on anything new
Well,
business-wise.
we can do it after first public comment.
Right, we could do it after first public. I don't care where
Right,
it is.
that's what
I'm
I
just
mean.
saying, as long as we don't make votes until after first public comment.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it'd be the first item on the agenda after first public comment, superintendent, student board. Like, instead of us jumping into the committee stuff, we jump into new business first and then do committee after. It's not that big a deal. I just didn't want to go and change the agenda without chit-chatting with you guys. Ms. Brown?
I think it's a great idea, and I think you're right. Put it right after the public comment, because everything would still fall under what people want to
Yep.
say. It makes more sense, and I think it'll improve the efficiency.
That's what I thought. We all know I like productive and efficient.
Do you need a
Ms.
vote?
Starling? No, it can just be consensus.
My only question is where we are required to have the 30 minutes of public comment, do we have to have all 30 minutes before voting, or can we still keep it split? The
What?
15.
So the law changed this year, starting now. Governor Sununu just signed a new law, and I think that the law doesn't take effect until January, but he just signed the law earlier this month saying that all school board meetings, regular meetings like tonight, are required to have 30 minutes of public comment.
First and second?
It doesn't, other districts don't necessarily
They
divide
don't
their
do the
content.
second.
Yeah,
Right.
they have it all at the end, or they have it all at the beginning.
Right.
Some school boards aren't having public comment at all.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, the law now says that you're required to have 30 total minutes allotted on your agenda for public comment. It does not say where in the agenda it has to happen. It has been the practice of this board to make sure that we don't take votes on agenda items until
like that about
after we give the public a chance to speak.
Yep.
It's also been our practice to do a second comment period, so that if people in the community want to talk about something that wasn't on our agenda for the evening, they have the opportunity to do so, but without delaying the business of the district.
Right.
So my personal recommendation would be to keep it that way, but that policy is back in my queue. We just updated that policy, but it's back in my queue as soon as we get the updated recommendation from the School Boards Association.
I mean, as long as it follows their new policy, I love it. I think it's a great
I mean,
idea.
so our policy is already in compliance with the law, but we will look at it and double check.
Yep.
Do you want a motion, Ms. Bishop?
I think we should just do consensus.
Okay. So you'll put it between student members, the board, and before the committees.
Okay.
I think it's a
Awesome.
great idea.
I totally lifted it from the internet. It was not an original thought. Okay, so with that, Dr. Andre, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So it's hard to believe, it's already been almost 2 months that I've been in this chair. And it's been exciting. So as we communicated earlier, there was a lot of exciting news to share. And tonight, I just want to kind of do a brief recap on information I've been gathering over the last 2 months.
Mr. President, can you hit the lights?
Thank you.
So over the last 2 months, I've been doing a lot of listening, whether it's with putting out a survey, meeting with community members, city officials, the Chamber of Commerce, the United Way. This afternoon, I was at the Rotary, but really getting to talk to a lot of community members around what is Nashua? What's our school district? And really having conversations about what are our shared beliefs, values, and traditions. And it's nice to hear the amount of pride in the community of our public schools. When we come straight forward and ask about what are our beliefs, values, and traditions, what comes up a lot is really the groundedness of the belief in our students, the belief in our educators, our paraprofessionals, our administrators, the community that supports our school districts. Again, these are some of the quotes that I've heard. And it's really, again, refreshing of coming in. Not only Nashua, but the last 2 years have been really divisive. And so my conversations with people is really what unifies us. What do we share? And the reason why I'm asking about shared beliefs, values, and traditions, again, is that we need to really start to look at the power of collective efficacy. So there's research out there from Hattie and Donahue, and they say when teams of educators believe that they have the ability to make a difference, exciting things can happen in schools. So how do we, as the BOE, administrators, as a community, support our team of teachers and really start talking about and articulating what are our shared beliefs, values, and traditions. Because the research turns around and says, when we look at the effect size and effectiveness into changing student achievement, that collective teacher efficacy is a 1.57. This is all more research to get into, but it's of impacting student outcomes. And so when you compare that to other factors on the list, such as homework, right? Homework has an impact on student achievement of a 0.29. This is John Hattie's research, and it's anything over a 0.4 starts to make a significant difference. So when we look at student motivation, parent involvement, home environment, socioeconomic status, prior student achievement, our belief system outweigh those other factors. So really kind of going back to what's the power of our team of educators, our team of adults. And when I say educators, that could be a paraprofessional, it could be our custodians, everybody that impacts a student's learning is an educator. And I think it's more than just one classroom teacher. It is our collective adults moving forward in that belief system. So moving forward, we were also asking about what are the strengths of the district? And again, I think it's when we see the collective effort going forward, is working together as a team to best meet the needs of the students. Supportive staff, great teachers, dedicated and professional and passionate about students. It's really supporting the backbone of this district is the adults that are supporting students on every single day that we need to remember to recognize and celebrate. I think unfortunately, educators have been, again, not only in Nashua, been bashed for a number of years, but we need to make a collective effort in celebrating and recognizing the efforts of our adults. We also looked again at what are our untapped resources. Again, this is really small print in some of the quotes coming in. But it was interesting talking to, again, the adults, our community members, some of our teachers, administrators, that we recognize that we have people currently sitting in our district that feel like they have the resources. So how do we, again, reach out to these people to say, we value you, we want to hear your voice, and empower them to actually make a difference? So as we see in some of these comments, some of the answers are not coming from the outside. Some of the answers are coming from the inside and saying that we do have the resources. Just ask us. get us involved. And so that's really encouraging, and it's the same thing from the untapped resources from the community. When I met with several community partners, they wanted us to be specific on what are the avenues that they can actually help support our teachers, our students, our schools. So I think we have to get a little clearer on what's the what and the why. But again, I think we're so fortunate in Nashua to have a number of people who feel like we have the untapped resources, but we just have to create those avenues to get more people involved. They're not looking for experts from the outside, but they feel like that there's a potential of energy that's ready to burst. So I think, again, as we move forward, how do we create those opportunities for, again, not only our internal people who work for the Nashua School District, but our community partners who are thirsty to come to the table. I also asked about what unifies the district. Again, earlier I was talking about we've been so divisive as a nation about things. We talk about how big the school district is, but it was interesting to talk about, what actually brings us together. And this was a difficult conversation for people. Even though we're only 2 high schools, 3 middle schools, 13 elementary schools, it doesn't seem as big. And I think sometimes it feels very big because we don't actually talk about what unifies us. What's our connectivity? What's our purpose of how do we move forward? So I think this is going to be a theme going forward. Again, making sure that we can have a roadmap of things that actually draw us together. But here, some of the quotes were, our commitment to our students in our professional growth, a strong sense of community in our district. The students want and need to build a better opportunity system to advance their futures. The last quote, each elementary has its own culture, but everyone also shares a common goal of increasing student achievement, engagement, and social emotional well-being. And that couldn't be said any better. And I think that's where we start really big and we narrow down. So we don't want any school to lose their culture, their climate, their individuality. But we also know that it's strength in numbers. Rising tide lifts all boats. And so we know we have to be one community to support all students. So when talking about what unifies the district, this past week we had our Administrative Institute, and we participated in an exercise around initiative mapping. Again, coming in new, but we had each school map out what's going on in their school. What's the name of the initiative? What's the goal of the initiative? What data are we collecting? What's the impact? And what are the outcomes? And as much as it was hard to write things down, it was really about celebration. So, and we did a gallery walk so that the high school administrators could see what was happening at Birch Hill and Maine Dunstable. And it was really about celebrations and defining the clarity of what is all the work going on. As we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different programs or initiatives. Over the summer, we had 65 different professional development opportunities. We identified things during the initiative mapping, such programs as TLA elevations, interim assessment PD, curriculum writing with TLA, ANET was doing math and ELA curriculum writing, thinking classrooms, foundations training, pathways of a learning, or portrait of graduate. So there is a lot going on with a lot of names. And through this initiative mapping, we asked, what do they all have in common? Principal Richards kind of turned around and he's like, they all address student achievement. They all address student behaviors or student expectations in the classroom. So the goal of that, when we were doing our gallery walking and doing the initiative mapping, was exactly that. What brings all of our initiatives together? And it breaks down to some of the work around PLCs. So in all of our initiatives, what's our focus on students? And it comes down to some of these questions. What do we want students to know and be able to do? How will we know when each student has learned it? How will we respond when a student experiences difficulty in learning? How will we respond when a student experiences success in learning? Or when we looked at the initiatives, was it helping our PLCs and helping our teachers to working together, focus on collaboration? Or was the initiative around a focus on results? What data were we collecting? I did not give them these categories prior, but as we went through, we were looking for those buckets of taking the names of different programs or service providers and really looking at the goal. What are we trying to do? And sometimes, again, curriculum writing. What do we want all students to know and be able to do? Right? It focuses us back instead of saying it's another program, it's another silo. But really, when we have these 4 essential questions, everything, all the PD coming in is just another tool in the toolbox. As opposed to, again, when you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if we get actually at a higher level, think about these 4 questions. The tools coming in just give our educators different resources to use at different times. We have incredible educators in front of our students on a daily basis. So when they know when and how to use the right tools at the right time, magic, right? And so other than saying, this is a program that you must follow, here is your toolkit. Be professional enough to decide what is the best tool to use at the right time. So again, that was the purpose, again, of what's the unity in the district, where are we going, and celebrating and recognizing all the hard work over the years that Dr. Softy, Dr. McKinney, over the years have really built up to this place, but really bringing it all together. So that was really, again, impactful of getting back for our administrators what unifies us, what, instead of working in silos, what really connects us through different names. And as we move forward, we also want to talk about, so what do all those initiatives look like in the classroom? So over the course of this year, we're going to be talking about a lot of our vision of equitable instruction in the classroom. And that breaks down into 3 buckets. So the first kind of bucket is standard-based student evidence. In there, that's the alignment. If I walk into any classroom, pre-K through AP calculus, what are the students working on? What do we want them to know and be able to do? And again, at a tier 1 level. So what's our core instruction? What does our core curriculum look like? And what we want to see, again, using all the other initiatives, is that does our instruction or our learning targets match the rigor of the standards? Are we teaching at grade level on a daily basis? Again, for our core. And then is there alignment between learning target standard and what are the students doing? So if the standard is asking for analysis, comprehension, comparing, contrast, so more a DOK 2 or 3, is the student work in front of them at a basic recall level? So we want to make sure that there's alignment between, in our core, between the rigor of the standard and student evidence. What are our students doing on a daily basis, and do they have the access, support, and opportunity to reach those high standards? And so the second category is around how are our students organized to achieve those standards? What does your classroom look like, sound like, feel like? How are the students learning together? Are they working independently? Are they working as a group? Do they have opportunities for productive struggle using academic vocabulary? Are they debating? Where is the discourse in the classroom so that they can actually meet the rigor of the standard? That goes back to the learning target. And then the last category is how are we monitoring for learning on a daily basis? And some of this aspect is how is the teacher and the student knowing that they're meeting success. So what does good look like? We might not be there yet, but it's really important that the educator knows what good looks like, has models of strong and weak work, but also the student knows what good looks like. Does that student have models of strong and weak work where they can self-assess and have a roadmap to actually meet proficiency? So if we put those three buckets together, so does a student have models of strong and weak work, that they're getting descriptive feedback, whether through a peer or an educator in the classroom, that meets the learning target that's aligned to the rigor of the standards? Do we see that in the classroom every day, right? And so when we're working with our administrators, we're kind of going through a worksheet with them. So why is that important? Why is it important that the students know it's clear learning targets for a student and the teacher? What's the why behind that? I think we need to be able to communicate it, that it's not just compliance because the superintendent said I have to write something on the board, but how do we give the students the ownership and the agency to interact and create their own GPS to be successful? That's the purpose of our learning target and being known. So what does it look like? Again, how do we use some of our initiatives to actually get to that implementation? How, again, is through our initiatives, technical challenges. What might be getting in our way of not being able to provide students with clear learning targets on a daily basis? Is it supports? Is it resources? Is it the schedule? So again, as an administrator, how do we start addressing technical challenges? And then the other one is adaptive challenges, which might be more, are we focusing on the right priorities? Is it a belief system? Is it a value system? Are there other things that we have to address? And then lastly, as a worksheet, how are we as leaders or building principals proactively thinking about change? So if we know there's going to be a challenge that's a technical challenge, if I'm a building principal, I'm the superintendent, how am I thinking about that? What's my plan to address that? But also on a daily basis, how do we grow our coalition of the willing? How do we influence others around mindsets and belief systems, or put the right resources in place at the right time? So as an administrative staff, we're really looking at, again, taking all the initiatives over the last couple of years, what unifies them, looking at our shared beliefs, and talking about how do we, as a system, talk about and support others on what does every classroom sound like and feel like from pre-K through 12. And as we saw on things that unifies us, that's a big picture. But each building's still going to have their culture, their own traditions, and do things a little differently. But our expectation is that every third grader, no matter what school that they're in, is able to reach proficiency, because proficiency is proficiency. But the way that Ledge Street approaches their roadmap to reach proficiency might look different than Dr. Crisp, which might look different than Maine Dunstable. But at the end of the day, we want to see great teaching and learning in every classroom that provides the opportunities and supports for students to meet proficiency. So that's what we're looking at. And as we move forward over the course of the year, this is our roadmap for us, our guiding professional development. We've been working with a consultant, Confianza, and we'll be providing some supports to our administrators on what is really change management. So last week, we started talking about what's our vision for equitable instruction. In October, we'll go a little deeper into that. Again, working with our administrations, how do we create conditions of effective change? What data are we looking at? What's our coaching system? And then leading for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So over the course of the year, our administrative team from central office will be working with our building principals on what are those sprints between our professional development days. So how are they advancing their vision of equitable instruction between October 19th to November 8th? What are their action items? What's their game plan? What challenges might they see? And what are possible solutions? Who do they have to get involved? But as you can see in this guided professional development, we'll be working with our leadership teams to collect data and do mini sprints so that we can actually have a systemic vision of what is equitable instruction from our pre-K through AP classes. So that's where we're kind of going. As I said, I've been really fortunate as a superintendent over the last 60 days where there is a lot of pride in this district. There's a lot of incredible professional development opportunities for our teachers. And I think we have to talk about what unifies them, what brings it all together so that there isn't a feeling of overwhelmingness, whether it's for a teacher or a student. But again, how do we provide our educators with the best tools that they can use so that they can support our students at the right time so that they can reach proficiency. So again, really a shout out to the community of all the work that's been going on over the years. And I'm just fortunate to come in at this time and hopefully navigate the seas a little bit so that we can have a shared mission and vision moving forward.
Yes. I think that sounds like a great introduction to what the school year is going to be looking like. Do we have any responses to the superintendent's presentation?
I have a question.
Ms. Lampier?
I was just wondering, for the professional development dates that you listed, I wasn't sure who would be attending those.
So those are the days for our administrators. So it's every building administrator, central office administration, and assistant principals.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. I just want to say that the shared beliefs, values, and traditions. And one of the sentences that's in quote that stands out with me, a strong belief for us is that all students can learn and be successful. And I think it's about time that we really start working with that. I know we had a rough, year and a half with the remote, 2 years basically, but I think now that we're back in school, I think we really need to focus on our students now, getting that back in, how successful they can be. And I know with our teachers, this will make it happen. And I thank you, Dr. Andre.
Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. I have, I guess they're kind of related two questions. When we're talking about equitable instruction and looking at our instruction and improving it as we move forward, how does that intersect with the work that we're already doing to improve our English language learning within the district? And then also, do you expect this to have an impact as we're looking at our middle school project as kind of a holistic project and not just buildings?
Yes and yes. Okay. So quite honestly, we started having the discussions with Confianza to address the DOJ report. And in early conversations, it was, we're doing this to address the DOJ. And so when we looked at it, we said, while that's important, this is good for all students. And so the impetus wasn't really the DOJ is making us do this. It was really about this is really morally imperative that we build a systemic approach. So this is about, there's some teacher professional development from Confianza that is specifically around ELL instruction, and they'll be working with our teachers on professional development days and through faculty meetings as well to address ELL strategies. But really what we saw this is we wanted to make sure it was a bigger approach, not only for ELL students, but we also knew that this was good for our AP students. We knew this was good for our students with disabilities. So we really wanted to make sure it was, again, one approach to address what is good instruction in every single classroom. And then as we go back, fall back but what are the necessary supports to make that happen? So it might be ELL strategies, it might be reading strategies, it might be math strategies. And secondly, to your point about middle school, this exactly falls in line with that as we're reimagining what our middle school's instruction looks like. Again, I think we're starting to shape that vision of what does interaction, how do students, teachers interact with the content at a high level of rigor and proficiency.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Gladby.
Because we've only been here for an hour. I had two questions. The first one, did any administrators express concerns about the loss of early release time in disseminating this vision?
Not directly to me. That was prior to July 1. So,
Sure.
I think it's, again, just a slide on the focus of collaboration. I think it's really important that our teachers have the maximum amount of time to talk about student achievement, what they're doing in their PLCs, the data that they're looking at, to be proactive in their instruction. So unfortunately, we're losing that time. I think it could have been very valuable. So that's my own opinion, but no one has come to me saying we lost this time.
Right. And just to piggyback off that, we lost that because of CTE coordination of schedules,
Yep.
correct, within all of the regional ones?
Right.
Wait, you're saying it and I can't hear you over myself. Go ahead.
No, right. Yeah, I recall we got rid of early release days because of there was a maximum amount of conflict days that were permitted by
Right.
the state. And since we have collaborative CTE classes with other districts, we had to get rid of early release days because all of those were conflict days.
Okay.
I just asked because I don't know if 22 hours is an accurate estimate of how much time we've given up, but it seems like a significant.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot.
how do you, I know professional days, anyway, that didn't come up, so that's fine. And my other, if it didn't come up, that's good. Like you said, it's,
There's an aspect of, when we're doing that worksheet, is that's a challenge. So how losing 22, 25 hours, how do we scale up or communicate our expectations, and how do we provide the teachers the support to actually execute what our expectations are going to be? So that's where we're working with the building principals on what are the potential challenges, what are your potential solutions, so that they can be proactive.
and my other question, a separate issue, is did the topic of leveling come up at all? Academic leveling here?
That's what I was getting at.
No.
Not last week, but it has come up. I'm very aware of that. But I think that's part of the conversation on what does instruction look like. But when we start looking at proficiency and our student achievement data, like how do you, when we're talking about proficiency, the standards aren't leveled. And so again, what does instruction look like, and what are those multiple pathways to get students to reach proficiency? So I think that it will be a conversation that comes up in, the future of our middle schools, because I think we have to look at calibrating our student work so that, again, what is proficiency not only across our 3 middle schools, but how does that compare to other schools in New Hampshire, but across the country. Again, proficiency is proficiency, and how we reach there. There might be multiple instructional strategies that we're using, but leveling might not be the best way for our students.
That sounds like a policy discussion.
It'll get there.
It's on my queue.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
Is there a motion needed for this? This is just informational, right?
Yeah, this what I look at this as is kind of what the vision for the year is. Like, what's the goal? What are the stepping stones? And then what does it look like when we hit the top of that ladder? And then what does that plateau look like? And then what does it look like when we move on? So I think this is a great way to kind of see that vision from administration, from central office down, instead of springing things on people as we go. Let people know what's happening. And I feel like, I know as a parent, I can kind of see what my kid's academic is going to look like through the year, because I know what the school's vision is. So that's how I look at it, but I'm my own person.
Another question.
Ms. Lampier?
Are you going to keep updating us after each of these professional developments?
I'd be more than happy to. Tonight was more about instruction, but we're also having conversations, again, with our community partners. So this is a vision in the classroom, but when we say, what do we want our students to know and be able to do, that actually should also extend beyond the classroom walls. So how are we providing opportunities for real-world learning for our students that might be in the community? So again, I think this is an evolving conversation as we have more and more conversations about opportunities for our students and our educators. So this is just a start around equitable instruction, but there's a lot of incredible work going on that we just want to make sure that we can communicate, again, especially with partnering with our community to provide more opportunities for our students and our adults.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for putting that together for us. We are now up to our second public comment period. I'm going to guess Adam Marcoux signed up.
Ms. Darling, could you pass down the sign-up sheets, please?
I was like, do you actually want to sign it?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did.
It has to go in the book. It's public record.
Right,
Oh, so
I didn't
we're
write
back
the
to
date
the
on it.
chair now. Where'd the
We
podium
are, because
go?
of the microphones. You don't have to hit it on.
Oh,
It's always on.
Yeah. Welcome to the horseshoe.
I've missed you all. Adam Marcoux, I live at 4 Jldba Lane. I am president of the Nashua Teachers Union. And finally, all 3 of my children will be in the Nashua School District this school year. No more daycare. Hallelujah. To answer Mr. Claffey's question on the time for early release, it is 12 hours. And the majority was cartwheels and excitement that there was no more early release, with the exception of the secondary level where the departments are not all in the same building at the same time. So social studies, science, you get it. There was a few things in the communication policy that I would ask that, yes, coaches are back today or yesterday or have been here. Our teachers come back on Monday, and I bet your bottom dollar they've already been working on what their method is going to be. And it's probably a method that they've used a lot. And most of them will probably be the Remind app, or I can see the logo of one they use that, I can't think of it though. But they need a list, like tomorrow. And a method when POPs policies impact them directly, that they know they impact them directly. So this one impacts them directly. Changing the one on whether you can caucus or not, sorry, we don't care. You can, I do, but they don't. They don't need to know about that. And it needs to be something other than iNews. iNews is great because it has a lot of what's going on. But that's something like that's so important that they know as it happens, because a policy like that could impact credentialing in your job. So I don't know how that happens. I'm happy to share my thoughts with Dr. Andrade. We've been meeting regularly already, which has been excellent. The open lines of communication and collaboration are already flowing. So that was just something that I was thinking about. And we need clear expectations to set them up for success. So there's no poking holes about, oh, well, and I don't know if you're aware of the number of home calls teachers make as part of a school's plan.
It is now, is that something that needs to be looked at? Is that acceptable still?
Yep. So just to be clear, it's employee-student communications that need to be
The
approved.
policy says
Employee-student.
students or families in that new red part.
Yep.
About and I'm not against this policy at all. I'm about clarity, constructive ways to make sure that we are doing our due diligence as educators, as the board, as the school district. The or families part was concerning to me about the number of times I called home, good or not good. In that, I questioned whether that was acceptable now. I'm assuming it's going to be, but we know what assuming does, and I'd rather have it written as a procedure from the superintendent's office out to the buildings, so everyone's on the same page, so no one says, I didn't know.
Agreed.
So that was my thoughts on the policy. So I thank you for listening to that. I would, what Dr. Andrade showed tonight brought me back 7 years ago to a superintendent who communicated in a similar fashion with a vision for our school district. And yes, we've had turmoil with COVID and everything else in between, but it was nice to feel like we were going back to someone was in charge of the ship and knew what direction it was going, and brought everyone along. So he talked about the schools are having those conversations, the administration, community players. Dr. Andrade and I had a similar conversation too, which, I think is important because a lot has happened in the last 3 years, and I think, this is a great opportunity to learn from what happened, build on that, and move forward together. So I look forward to that with the board, with Dr. Andrade. Welcome, Mr. Posca, to your new spot. Dr. Sarfty, we're old friends, so, and Ms. Duffy, welcome aboard on your first day here at the school board. So, so I look forward to seeing you all again, back in person. Happy to be here, and good luck to us all next week when school starts.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other? No? Okay. I see Ms. Newman back there, but she doesn't want to play with us today. So that will wrap up our second public comment. Now it is board member comments. And we started with you last time, Ms. Darling, so I'll start over here with Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Marcoux for his comments here. I think straightening out that policy, just a few words, makes a difference, and we're all on the same page here, so there's no questions or anything. And look forward to hearing from you again, Mr. Marcoux. We've missed you over summer vacation. You have a wonderful tan. Oh, I'm going to make sure she puts that in the minutes. It might be the only time, right, that we agree on something. Hey, it's all good. And so that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Oden?
Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Andrade for that presentation. I think the strength of Nashua is in the staff, and it's nice to see it recognized. Thank you for putting this together for everybody, and I hope everybody's familiar with it, because I think you did a great job, and it tells a lot about our district and our community, so thank you.
Ms. Brown?
Yep, I also agree. I love that this is very purpose-driven and asks why and what brings us together instead of what pulls us apart. And so thank you for starting off the year on that kind of a foot. And just good luck to all the families, the students, the teachers, all the staff and faculty that's got this great new year ahead of us.
Thank you. Ms. Lampier?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the new year as well. And I just think it's great that you guys are doing such a good job and making such great strides.
Thank you. Ms. Raymond?
Nope, I just want to welcome everybody back, and just a reminder about Nashua goes back to school night Thursday. And a reminder to parents to make sure to go on to the website, make sure you got your bus pass if you're in high school nailed down. Call the central office if you don't know at any level where your child's bus stop is, or if you're on a bus. And make sure you go on the website to get lunches set up now and not after school starts, because we want to make sure every kid who needs it has breakfast and lunch on their first day.
Ms. Giglio?
Hi. I just, yes. I just want to say that I'm leaving the meeting in a few minutes, and I'm feeling really optimistic. And I can't say that that was true of many of the meetings that I've attended as a Board of Education member, but I truly feel that now. I think that we're in a really good place, and I'm looking forward to the school year.
Mr. Claffey?
Thank you. Yeah, obviously I had concerns about the proposed changes to the electronic communication. It seemed clear that Dr. Andre supports these changes, and you changed my mind. And I certainly don't want to be perceived as someone who wants to micromanage a district. It's the opposite.
Thank you. Ms. Darling?
For my comment, can I motion we adjourn?
Well, I still have to go.
Oh. No comment.
I mean, you can make it whenever you want.
I motion we adjourn as soon as you've made your comment.
All right. I want to piggyback off of Ms. Giglio and say that, you know, we've been coming out of a rough 2 years, and I think we learned a lot about what our district has in challenges, but also what it has in its great assets, and it's obviously the teachers and the students and the family members of those students, but also our dedicated community who really wants to see our district succeed. I thought that presentation really highlighted, you know, all of the multifaceted aspects of educating students, and I am incredibly grateful for the teachers who are going to be starting very shortly. You guys, all of the work that you've been doing, and I was watching everybody's faces during that, and I think even as a board, we're pretty united in where we see this vision going, and I also have very high hopes for the future. And Ms. Brown agreed with me tonight, so I'm like, I gotta win. I'm gonna go sleep well tonight. But good luck, everybody. I know I am excited to have a clean house for a total of 8 hours a day, with the kids going back in. But with that, Ms. Darling?
A quick comment. If we had verbatim minutes, you'd have that in writing.
Oh, we'll put it on a Post-it note. I'll give it
Just
to her.
throwing that out there. I motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It was Ms. Darling and Ms. Johnson on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Good night, everybody. It is 8:27. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night.
I dropped them.
Enjoy the last bits of summer.